This is Thoughts on Public Education. I'm Kathy Barron, and we're back with Diane Ravitch, one of the nation's leading voices on education policy. Public education has been criticized for years. Teachers and principals are blamed for low test scores, with punishments that are sometimes draconian, really. Schools being shut down, people being fired, transferred. At the same time, this country will need probably the low end, 1 million new teachers is one of the figures in the next decade. I wonder, why would anyone go into this profession?
You know, as I go to college campuses, a lot of young people ask me, why are we beating up on teachers all the time? I just think it's a really horrible and stupid strategy on the part of the people who call themselves reformers to be attacking and demoralizing teachers, because they're the ones who do the work. So much of the criticism of education today is coming from people who are not educators, who haven't been in a classroom since they graduated high school or college. And many of them went to elite private schools, boarding schools, and they have no understanding or appreciation of the role of public education in our democracy. So I think we're living in an era that's almost completely mean-spirited. I would call it insane, actually. We never, until No Child Left Behind, thought that closing schools was a good way to improve them. It's a stupid approach. We should be fixing the schools we have. We should not be just firing teachers wholesale, firing principals, closing schools. It doesn't improve them. It didn't improve them in Chicago, and it hasn't improved them in New York City or anywhere else that it's been tried.
There seems to be perhaps confusion over reform, the word reform. If you support the reform that's being passed in the legislature and the federal government, then you're a reformer. And if you sort of want to look at curriculum changes and less structural but more internal academic changes, you're considered against reform. I mean, do you get that sense?
Well, what's happened is that the people who have a particular set of remedies, mostly what they call it's a business approach, punish people, give people bonuses, incentives, sanctions, threaten to fire them or close their school. This is a business approach, or at least they think it is. They're not educators, and they call themselves reformers. I call them corporate reformers because they have no understanding of education. And they say that if you don't agree with them, then you're for the status quo. Well, I don't agree with them, and I hate the status quo. The status quo is No Child Left Behind. It's testing and accountability. It's firing teachers, firing principals, closing schools. All of this is wrong-headed. Merit pay has never worked. None of the nostrums that they're promoting have any evidence behind them, like judging teachers by test scores. Teachers have a lot to do with whether kids succeed or don't succeed, but their families have even more to do with it, and we're not holding anyone accountable but teachers. So I guess what concerns me right now is that the rhetoric of these reformers is having a very punitive, demoralizing effect on the whole teaching profession. And I don't know who they think is going to teach in the future if they keep this up.
Well, what's happening, you have written about what's going on in Wisconsin right now, where the governor is proposing an end to collective bargaining, and the teachers' unions would be one of those affected. It seems that you're actually one of the very few people who have written about that from a policy perspective. Mm-hmm. What do you know, suddenly there are all these teachers are actually getting out there along with other union workers. Was this sort of the last straw in this sort of diatribe against them?
Well, my view, and I wrote about this on CNN.com, is that teachers have been like a powder keg. They've just been so piled on, so demeaned and attacked by, for instance, a movie like Waiting for Superman that blames teachers for low test scores, holds teachers solely accountable for all the things that the movie maker doesn't like. And I think that all of this piling on finally led to an explosion. And Wisconsin was like the flashpoint where people could actually gather together and say, we've had enough, we won't take it anymore. And I think it's understandable because you just can't improve schools by making people feel bad about the work they do, which is hard work.
I wanted to throw out a couple of the most contentious issues out there right now and have you give a couple of sentences about how you would fix some of these problems, or if you even think they're problems. One is this whole movement toward a national core curriculum, like the Common Core curriculum. What do you make of that? Is that the right way to go?
Well, I've always been an advocate for a national curriculum, but I don't know whether this is it or not. My view of a curriculum is that it's broad and it's deep and it includes the arts. And when I was assistant secretary in the early 90s, we put out contracts for the arts and civics and history and science and geography and physical education, the whole range of studies. This is only about math and reading, just like No Child Left Behind. And it may be good, it may not be, but until it's validated somewhere, we'll never know.
Another one is improving teacher quality. That's a huge issue.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is an issue that's been cooked up by the Gates Foundation and the Broad Foundation and a few other very wealthy people, including the U.S. Department of Education. I don't think we have a crisis of teacher quality. I think this is a great red herring in the U.S. today. We have a crisis of poverty among children. We have more than 20% of our children living in poverty. I don't know of any other country that we compare ourselves to that has so many children who have no social safety net. But we've decided to blame everything on teachers and focus only on teachers. Of course we should improve teacher quality, but we're not going about it in a way that will actually improve teacher quality. We're going about it in a way that will simply use test scores to measure quality, and they're not a measure of quality.
So what would we do? What would work better, a suggestion?
Well, what would work better would be if we had some long-term thinking about how to restructure the teaching profession so that we recruit really the creme de la creme. And I'm not talking about Ivy League colleges. I'm just saying that we should have a loan forgiveness program so that there are many people who want to be teaching, and those places that are preparing teachers will have choices and select based on whatever criteria they want to use. But we have a revolving door now. The biggest problem right now is that 50% of the people who enter teaching are gone within 5 years. So the conditions of teaching are very poor. There's low morale. There's a lack of support and mentoring for teachers, and teachers feel like they're being thrown to the wolves. We really have to rethink in a serious way the recruitment, retention, and support for teachers so that we build a profession. That kind of thinking is not going on now, not at any level.
What would it take for that to happen?
I would say that instead of, let's say, pumping $150 million into Teach for America, which is a nice program, but it's not an answer, the president ought to create a commission, and he ought to task them with thinking through what should be the conditions under which we can improve the teaching profession, recruitment, support, and retention, and begin to have a national policy. That, I think, would be very constructive.
And what role can teachers play? Obviously, as we've said, you've tapped into this anger there. I think many of them probably feel a little bit lacking in power. You know, what do they do? I'm a teacher, I'm in the class all day. What can they do? What can parents do? What would you recommend to kind of get that conversation moving in another direction?
Well, gosh, you know, when I think of the things that need to change,
and I guess you have to say it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
We should get rid of high-stakes testing. That is so demeaning and demoralizing to children and to teachers. That would be a good beginning. There are so many things that we need to change, and I think the teachers have to be part of that conversation.
And do you see that happening? Is there room for them to sort of move on?
Not now. Right now we have a lot of education experts who've never taught ever in their lives. And we have the whole profession is being demeaned, demoralized, and restructured by people who've never taught.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but Diane Ravitch, thank you very much for being with us and giving us some food for thought on education reform. I'm Kathy Barron with Top Ed, and thanks for watching.